lot of comics is that a lot of people assume that comedians are, because on stage they project a character of themselves.
Yeah.
They're very outgoing, very confident, and very sociable and easy to get on with, and they expect them to be like heroes you see in a movie. That's really cool.
Yeah.
But off stage, a lot of them are not like that at all.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing people ask when they meet a comedian is tell us a joke, and that's not what comedians are like off stage at all. Comedians off stage aren't continually sort of being jolly and telling people jokes at all. They're probably rather morose and suicidal.
Yeah, it's not one thing that has had a thought to me recently, that a lot of comedians, I think that there's something that's missing, and that's why they do it.
Yeah.
So like with regarding mental health issues, I mean, as you mentioned before, a lot of them do it because they feel a bit insecure, and comedy in a way helps them feel better about themselves. And then even the ones that appear to be very, just regular and not off the wall, like when you get to know them on stage, like you hear that they got these health problems or whatever, or I hear a lot of them saying they got the IBS, or they got some sort of blood condition or this and that. And so I feel that in comedy, or maybe in all performing arts, they're trying to cover for something that's missing in their lives.
Well, they want a confirmation that they're interesting, or confirmation that people like them, presumably. And if you get a 3,000-seater all applauding you and whooping and standing up and giving you a standing ovation, then that's reassuring you that you're not a nobody.
And when you've done all these interviews, I mean, how many have you done so far? I mean, you've done it for over 10 years. So, would that be in the thousands?
God knows, I suppose so. Yeah.
But do you have like a little checklist before you interview the comedian?
Yeah. And I never have any list before I talk to people. Because if you've got a list and you go through the list 1, 2, 3, it's question number 15 now, then you're not really going to get under their skin or get the real story. The thing is to do like the first 3 questions that come into your head, and then that person will say something that takes you off on a total sidetrack, but that sidetrack will take you onto another sidetrack, and then you'll find something really interesting you never knew about. I mean, I should read past interviews with those people, but I never do because I'm lazy. If you read all the past interviews, you knew all the questions that they have of all the answers they have of pat. But if you don't read the interviews that they've done before, then they can't necessarily go into the same old rut they've been in before. You want to talk to them about something they've not talked about before. And also to an extent, I'm good interviewer because people think I'm an idiot. It's always a help, I think, because I just gibber. I like this. I gibber, and therefore I don't appear to be a threat. And I'm not a threat because I don't do nasty interviews. But and therefore they're more likely to trust me and to tell me things they haven't told other people. Maybe.
Yes. There's a podcaster called James English, and he's the
James
ones.
English. Never heard.
He's it's a podcast that's doing quite well, and I watched an interview where they interviewed him, and one of the things he does, like, he interviews criminals or murderers and all sorts of different people, and like celebrities, and one thing he does, even if he thinks that someone's talking lies, he doesn't argue with them. He just lets them talk, because it's easier for them to be themselves. And in the podcast as well, I tend not to, if I disagree with something that the guest's saying, a lot of the times I rarely ever say that I disagree with them, because I want them to let their opinions out rather than I want to find out about them. And if I start arguing with them, then they're going to close up.
Yeah, I mean, an ex-girlfriend of mine once said to me, and it wasn't a compliment, I was non-judgmental. I never actually judged it, which is good. But yeah, I mean, if someone says something, then I'll try and say the opposite, because if you say the opposite, then they have to argue their point. Well, one of the things I was always told early on was never ever ask a yes/no question, because they'll just say yes or no, and it doesn't get you anywhere. What you do is if someone offers a view, then what you should do is offer the opposite view and see how they get out of that corner. But just as often I'll say that to someone I agree with. So if someone I agree with says something, I'll put the opposite view I don't agree with. So they have to justify the view I do agree with, if you see what I mean.
So two things from that. When you're preparing for an interview, like from my side, I'll look at like other podcast interviews or interviews they've already done.
Yeah.
What do you do to get sort of a bit background information on who you're interviewing, or to try and understand who they are?
I vaguely know who they are, and I don't do background. I mean, I know the basic background. I mean, I know nothing about you, but then I'm not interviewing you. If I wanted to know about you, I'd sort of, because I know nothing about your background really. I'd just have a general sort of look around, I don't know, Chortle or wherever, and see if you. I don't care if you've been to university or if you were a sheet metal worker. I can find that out when I talk to you. So I mean, you know. What are you in the outside world apart from a stand-up comedian? And that'll lead on to something else. So, I mean, if you're a sheet metal worker in real life and you do stand-up comedy in the evenings, I mean, most stand-up comedians, because there's no money in it, most stand-up comedians have another job and therefore they have another life. And probably the interesting thing actually isn't them being a stand-up comedian; it's what they're actually doing in the quote real world.